everybody, it's Mike here from AV Invasion. Today I am in my other studio where I typically film my videos for The Art of Guitar. So you probably see the guitar sit next to me. But the other location I usually film is being reconstructed right now. So I have the desk all torn apart and stuff like that. So there's going to be no cheesy green screens for you today. But I thought it would be really cool to start a short series of me basically discovering Game of Thrones for the first time here in 2026. I know a lot of people gave me crap for not getting into it back in the day, and now that I've watched an episode of it and really paid attention, I can see why they were so adamant about getting me to watch it. Now, I have to admit, my girlfriend at the time was way into Game of Thrones, and she had me sit down and watch the first episode. But we were drinking wine and talking, and I didn't really pay attention. So I thought, you know what, all these years later, I'm going to actually give it all of my attention. And I actually watched it 2 times now, the first episode. So I wanted to go through and talk about my initial reactions to it. And I know a lot of people are going to, giggle at me because they're going to be like, oh, this dude has no idea what's coming up. A lot of people were telling me that. They're like, do not get connected. Do not get attached to any character because the next thing you know, they're getting pushed out a window. Spoiler. Well, not for you guys, probably. Okay, let's start with episode 1. I don't think I'm going to do one of these videos for every episode. Maybe I'll do a handful for the next one. But I just really wanted to kick this off with episode 1. Winter is coming. I always wondered why people kept saying that. People would be like, dude, winter's coming. Like, okay, I know that's Game of Thrones, but I really don't know the context of it. I like how the beginning is kind of ominous. It starts off with the 3 guys on horses, and I think one of the guys, the main guy, the leader guy, looked like a Matt Damon wannabe. I kept thinking that every time he was talking. His demeanor, basically. He seemed a little bit agitated and kind of dickish, if you will. Kind of like Matt Damon can be sometimes in movies.
Well, I got a number. How do you like them apples?
Well, it was really cool how they go through the tunnel and you have no idea they're going through that gigantic wall. And when they come out on the other side, it looks like they've entered Hoth. And I like how they had that little basket next to the door where they threw the torches. And it made me wonder, I think this is supposed to be similar to the 1400s, the 15th century. So I always wondered how they lit torches back then. Maybe they just kept a fire going all the time. I'm not sure, but I know they didn't have, a frickin' Zippo. The setting was so cool. When the one guy was getting a little bit freaked out and he starts running and you could see the black trees, something about the white snow everywhere. And then all of those black trees just gave me this sort of anxious feeling because I've gotten lost in the woods before up north here in Minnesota. And I think it must have felt about the same. I loved when that first White Walker with the blue eyes kind of stands up. It just gives off that vibe, like now you're in my world, buddy. The blue eyes, I didn't expect that. That's pretty sweet. And then with the dead girl in the tree or whatever, she was hanging there. And then when she shows up later and she's got, the glowing blue eyes as well. I thought that was really cool because it told me that these evil creatures, White Walkers, I believe, can come in any shape or size. At first you think it's just going to be that scary looking menacing creature, the tall one that cuts off the dude's head. But it could also be this girl too. Now the first beheading incident was pretty cool, especially when he threw the head at the guy. But, I've seen a lot of very violent beheading scenes in movies, just being a horror movie freak. And right away I thought one of the most brutal ones I ever saw was that 2022 Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake. Spoiler, at the very end. That one really got to me for some reason. The opening title sequence for Game of Thrones is very epic. I love the way it pans around and it basically shows you the maps so you can understand, okay, there's the wall, there's this place, there's that place. And the theme music is so legendary. I could see why so many people were obsessed with it. A lot of people did guitar covers of it. And I love the way the buildings were building themselves up, almost like a Lego Fortnite, I imagine would be like. I've never played that before. Another thing I'm late to the party on. I don't even think people play that anymore, do they? Everyone's playing Roblox or something. I don't know. I love the name Winterfell. I believe that's for their community. I don't know exactly what that's called, their township. But Winterfell sounds like a really cool place to live, especially for a Minnesotan. As I was seeing the characters for the first time, I kept thinking, oh yeah, That's why they got famous. You know, about 15 years ago, I was hearing about all of these actors, and I'm like, okay. And the first time I saw Arya, I knew she was going to be one of my favorite characters just because she seemed sassy right off the bat. The way she was staring at what turned out to be her sister. And I'll just be jumping from scene to scene here, but I like the archery scene with Bran. I think it's short for Brandon. When everybody was watching him try to shoot the arrow, and I could just feel that pressure of everybody staring at you. And then I did recognize Jon Snow, by the way. That's a character I was familiar with. And it would be very intimidating to have someone like him watching you try to do the very thing he's so good at, I assume. And I kept thinking, what would I do if I was living in that Renaissance festival kind of world all the time? And I know I would get into archery. I think I would try to become the best archer possible, which apparently Arya is, because she shot the arrow from behind Bran and hit the target. And I thought they really filmed that well, because it always keeps you guessing. You learn really fast that Game of Thrones is good at doing that, throwing you off a little bit. They have this great way of piquing your interest and then twisting it a little bit, you know, just kind of changing it up enough to keep you on your toes the whole time. So that's a great early example of that happening. And of course, you could tell right away who the head of the family is as soon as you see Ned Stark, which seems like a weird name. It doesn't seem like a name that would fit the times. I think his real name's Eddard in the show, but Ned is kind of funny to call him that. But I like how he seems a bit torn whenever he has to do certain things. So right away we get a glimpse of that when he has to take care of the deserter. You know, the guy who encountered the White Walkers and ran back. And as soon as Ned found out about him, you could tell he was just kind of dreading what he was going to have to do. It kind of gave me Marcus Aurelius vibes. I always pictured Marcus Aurelius being like that, like, oh man, I gotta cut this guy's head off. I didn't want to do this. Sorry, dude. I like the way he had Bran watch and witness what he had to do, kind of trying to get the kid to grow up faster. Because like he said, you know, he's not going to be a boy forever and winter is coming. The direwolf scene killed me because it really showed me that no matter what era you're living in, a lot of things are still the same, especially when it comes to family dynamics. So it was funny to me when Bran wanted to like adopt the baby direwolves because the mother was dead, laying there dead. But Ned was like, nope, sorry, we gotta, you know, get rid of those dogs. You know, they don't have a mother. And just the way Jon Snow talked him out of it. But then Ned's like, okay, but you have to take care of them. You have to look after them, you have to train them, and if they die, you have to bury them. That reminded me so much of when we were kids and we got hamsters for the first time, and we were just begging our dad for hamsters, and finally he said pretty much the same thing, except for the burial part. This is when I realized that Jon Snow is not part of the Stark family. That was a surprise to me. That's how much I didn't pay attention the first time I watched it. So he's the bastard, as he's referred to quite a bit. Then we go to King's Landing. Now this is when we're introduced to the Lannisters, and I knew about Lena Headey. I've always liked her as an actor, and I love her in this role. And the funniest thing about it is the first time we see her, she seems pretty sweet. You know, she's talking about, oh, you should be the king's hand to her brother, and she seems real sincere. But for the rest of the episode, she has a look on her face all the time. It's hard to describe, but it's almost like she's in mild pain. And she's always wanting to be somewhere else, especially when they go visit the Starks. Just the look on her face when she steps off of the horse buggy thing. She just looks like she has better things to do, which later we'll find out is her brother. They must have spent a ton of money on props, costumes, and scenery, because that scene with the tree, the white and the red tree, is just awesome looking. Now I feel bad, but I do not know Ned's wife's name yet. It hasn't sunk in, so I'll just call her Lady Stark. Just that scene where they were talking to each other under that tree, I thought that was a really cool setting. And the costume thing really hit me when the king showed up with all of the troops with him and all the people, and that catsuit person went by, you know, with a metal catsuit. I thought that must have cost a pretty penny to make something like that. And you could tell a lot of it is real. You know, I know they use green screens for some of the scenery and all that stuff, but you could tell they put a lot, I think it was like $6 million into each episode early on, which today would be like 30 million. No, I'm just kidding. Not that much, probably. The casting for this show was incredible because right away you see, what's his name, who looks kind of like the Malfoy character. I'll learn his name eventually, but I just know he has that sinister face already. You could just tell he's going to be a total asshat. As soon as Arya was like, where's the imp? What happened to the imp? I was like, oh yeah, that's right. Peter Dinklage is in this. It's funny because I get a lot of shows mixed up, you know, between Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter and now Game of Thrones. I'm like, okay, which show is he on? I know it's not Harry Potter. And by the way, when Peter Dinklage shows up on the show, it goes to the next level, if that's even possible. His acting chops, his presence, his confidence in such a, small stature is incredible. And he really plays that part to a T. It's almost like it was tailor-made for him. Now, I didn't know he was brothers with the two Lannister siblings. I had no idea about that connection, so now I know. And of course, he's quite the ladies' man, and he loves the crazy side of life, drinking and just, having fun with the ladies. And I loved when he said, God blessed me with one thing.
The gods gave me one blessing.
I couldn't believe the extent of the nudity right off the bat. I mean, I knew people were telling me that it's pretty racy, but for a second, it almost felt like old school Cinemax, like softcore porn, close to that. I mean, you could almost see things and you could see other things, but I was just like, whoa, that was close. Then when they go to Pentos, it goes yet another level higher because I'm like, okay, here's the Queen of Dragons. I knew that, but I used to call her Khaleesi because that's what I've heard before. But I'm going to call her Dany from now on because it's easier than calling her Daenerys or whatever it is. I know I sound like a total noob right now. And of course, she's completely glowing, with her long blonde hair and just the way they filmed that whole scene. Very sunny, very bright. I was squinting because my living room was completely dark when I was watching it. And when her brother shows up, I'm like, here's another perfect cast. You could just see that this guy's trouble. This guy who wants to be king, he just seems like a weasel. There's one thing I can always detect in people, it's if they're weaselly. And he's very much so. But I didn't expect him to just take her clothes off right there. That was very unexpected. And I thought, okay, this is how it's going to be. And then when she walks into that really hot bath and that lady's like, my lady, it's way too hot. And she didn't even flinch. I thought about it. I'm like, well, if she's the Queen of Dragons, she must be adverse to hot things like fire, maybe? And it kind of made sense. We'll see what happens, but that's just my guess. She's able to just withstand any sort of heat, even though she's very pale. Doesn't really go together, but... And then Jason Momoa finally shows up and he's on a horse, How perfect. And he's just looking badass, of course. And it's one of those things where I don't even remember his name right now. It's like Drago or Dorgo or something like that. So I take it the Dothraki are like the Klingons of this series. I'm just guessing. They just seem like it. The Dothraki seem like fun people, that can really party. And when they showed the scene where, they go to the wedding, where they're having their wedding, I believe, and everyone's fighting and dancing and being crazy, it reminded me a lot of like the movie Caligula, where it's just like everything goes, it's just madness all over the place. And that line, the guy said something like, if 2 or 3 people don't die at a wedding, we consider it tame. I'm totally paraphrasing here. And I hated it when Dany's brother went up to her and he said one of the most vile things you could say, just the way he was like, for me to be king, I would have you, used up, I'll say, by 40,000 men and their horses too. And that's when I was thinking, man, I can't wait because I know what's going to happen. I just picture it in my head. The weasel dude is going to end up on the wrong end of the fiery dragon breath. It's just my prediction. I really love the dialogue between Peter Dinklage's character. I'll have to learn that name too. Tyrion Lannister. I had to look up his name real quick, Peter Dinklage, because I didn't want to keep calling him Peter Dinklage. But Tyrion's dialogue with Jon Snow, when Jon's out there practicing his sword, I thought that was an incredible scene. Just the way they bounced off each other, there's a little bit of play going on. Whenever it comes to Tyrion, he's always sort of half joking, half biting in what he says to people, and he really knows how to get to Jon Snow, just by calling him a bastard, first of all. But the line that really floored me, there's a lot of these lines, by the way, in the show where I'm just like, whew, that was well written, was when Jon Snow was like, what would you know about being a bastard? And Peter Dinklage is like, all dwarves are bastards in their father's eyes. I was like, damn. And for some reason, I had that Eric Clapton song, In My Father's Eyes, in my head for the next 2 days. It's just how my brain works. I don't know. My father's eyes. All right, the final scene of the first episode, I do remember from the first time I watched it, even though I think I was 3 glasses of wine in at the time. But Bran climbing the wall after his mom specifically told him not to. He climbs the wall and he hears the moaning and he looks through the window and he sees, the Lannisters getting freaky. And just the way they filmed that was so perfect. It seems so realistic, just the way you could hear it at first. Then he kind of peeks in. He doesn't really know what's going on at his age, I don't think. And at first you're thinking, oh, it's just that crazy brother, the edgy dude getting it on with somebody, some help maybe. And then when Cersei looks up, You're just like, oh my God, this went yet another level higher. How many levels are in this damn show? Well, then a flood of thoughts enter you because you think, okay, this kid just saw something that he wasn't supposed to see, first of all. Second of all, if it's always about power, it seems like back then, and, you know, still to this day, just in different ways, I guess. But now the kid has power because he can kind of basically blackmail them. He has some information on them, some dirt. And just the way she kept saying, he saw us, he saw us. I was just thinking, they're not going to go there, are they? And then when the brother goes up and, you know, just acts nice to him, I thought, okay, maybe he does have a shred of decency. Until he goes, the things I do for love. See ya. And as Bran was falling, all I could think in my head, this is really mean, but I just kept thinking, see, you should have listened to your mother.
How many times have I told you, no climbing?
So that leaves you with a lot of questions. Did he survive the fall? Is he going to lose all his memories, even if he does come back? You know, where does it go from here? And holy crap, I had no idea the Lannisters were getting freaky like that. So what I think I'll do is I'll watch the next 3 episodes, maybe 2, maybe 3, and then I'll do another catch-up video because now I'll know their names better and I'll have a better footing on what really is happening, I think. You know, after the first episode, there are just a lot of questions. So we'll see you guys at that video. It should be a lot of fun. I'm actually very excited about going home tonight just to be able to watch it. So, all right, we'll catch you guys later. Bye-bye.
See you at sundown.
Close the door!